This is the Environmental Protection Commission special meeting, Tuesday, September 14th, 2021. Old business. These are deliberations and possible decisions on the following. EPC 31, 2021, Jennifer Jiang, 19 Meadowbrook Road, proposing culvert replacement within Tokenique Brook. The prior applicants were Bob Johnston and Susan Latimer of 8 and 15 Meadowbrook Road, respectively. The site is shown on Assessor's Map number 14 as lot number 9. Okay. The commission members have received a draft of the approval. I went through it. I didn't have any problems with it. Did anybody?
Yes. Jim Millard had some minor comments. I think on this one, his comment was, let me just get it out, year 31, was just on the date, the expiration date. And then on page 3, there was a typo. We had placing the pipes back on, and Jim said place the pipes back in.
Okay.
So it was just the 2 typos.
Okay. Thank you, Jim.
Sure.
So, given those 2 minor changes, Jim, can I have a motion to approve?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'm pleased to make a motion to approve the conditional approval draft for EPC application 31-2021 with regard to 19 Meadowbrook Road.
All right, can I have a second? Hey, Billy, take yourself off on mute. Yeah.
I second.
Okay. Without objection, so moved.
Great.
The next item is EPC 32, 2021, 19 FMRR LLC, 91 5 Mile River Road, proposing a replacement house and regrading and construction in upland review area. The site is shown on Assessor's Map number 66 as lot number 20. The commission members have a copy of the draft.
Yep. Similarly, there's a change of the date on page 1, and then on page 3, I just put in the wrong application number.
Oh,
Other
geez.
than that, Jim's checked it out.
Well, let me tell you something. Amazing. Amazing. Congratulations.
Yeah.
Okay. Jim, with that, may I have a motion to approve?
Yes, sir. I move to approve the conditional approval as drafted for EPC 32-2021 with respect to the application for 91 5 Mile River Road.
Great. Bill Wright, may I have a second?
I'll second that.
Great. So moved without objection. Thank you very much. Next item of business is EPC 33, 2021, Town of Darien Parks and Rec Department, 40 West Avenue, Tilly Pond Park, proposed dredging a sediment pond. The site is shown on Assessor's Map number 17 as lot number 87.
Jim found a typo on page 1, and then I got one in the last paragraph, condition 13, where we make references to proposed plantings. There were no proposed plantings. So we would just say, all proposed activities must be completed and all conditions of this permit must be met. So page 1 and page 4.
Jim slipping.
Yeah.
So, given that, Jim Millard, can I have a motion to approve this one?
Yes, sir. I move to make a motion for approval of the conditional approval as drafted for EPC 33-2021 with respect to the application by the Town of Darien Parks and Recreation for 40 West Avenue.
Great. Bill Wright, may I have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, thank you. Then, so moved without objection.
Great.
EPC, the next one is EPC 36, 2021, James P. and Elizabeth D. Degnan, 19 Brush Island Road, proposing swimming pool construction in an upland review area. The site is shown on Assessor's Map number 51 as lot number 12. Commission members have a draft of that.
I think the only change here was the date on top of page 1. I think that was it, right, Jim? Just date on this one?
I think that's right, Jeremy.
Okay. So,
Just for Jeremy's benefit, Eric, the dates I changed in each of the 4 cases limited the permit to precisely 5 years, because by adding that extra day, it's 5 years and 1 day. So we kind of have built that in, Jeremy, in our recent
Excellent.
deliberations together.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for being so precise. Okay, I guess, Jim Millard, may I have a motion to approve?
Yes, sir. I move to make a motion to approve EPC and its conditional approval for EPC application 36-2021 regarding 19 Brush Island Road.
Great, Bill Wright, may I have a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you.
All in favor?
Okay, no, without objection, so moved.
Great.
Okay, now we move on to a brief discussion of September 1 and September 2, 2021 storm and storm at 21 and temporary approvals.
Sure. Well, you know, while we were in last week's the EPC meeting of September 1st and into the morning of the 2nd, the town got so much rain, it was almost 8 inches, that it was determined to be somewhere between a 200-year storm and a 500-year storm. Again, most of our applications, most of our infrastructure is geared towards a 50-year storm. So certainly this is way beyond what would be expected in our lifetime. So certainly our office and public works have been dealing with the ramifications, as well as the selectmen's office, in terms of complaints. People who've gotten water in their, not only the basements, but the first floors of their house. The emergency management officer is working on gathering information from people. So if you're aware of people who may have had flood damage, have them reported to the emergency management officer, because if it does get declared an emergency, there are potentially some opportunities there. We've spoken with numerous people about lifting their houses, elevating their structures. We've investigated many complaints about the cause of the damage, where it may have been, quote unquote, the town's fault or my neighbor's fault. We are in the process of investigating many of those, as has Public Works. One of the things I wanted to bring to your attention is there were at least 3 properties in town where their sole access to get in and out of their house was damaged, such that an ambulance would not be able to reach them. So we've been working closely with those people, including the project you just approved at 19 Meadowbrook. There's another one on Stony Brook Road, and there's another one on Old Kings Highway, that erosion or other causes have caused a bridge or something to collapse, or driveway, such that we've had to make emergency arrangements and issue them, I'll call it emergency approvals, so they can at least get safely in and out of their homes and emergency vehicles can reach them. You may start seeing some applications, some formal applications for dredging, other emergency type repairs. You might see some at the October 6th meeting. But I at least wanted to let you know that we have made some temporary emergency approvals in those safety situations. Other situations will have to wait, but where life was at risk, we had to issue people temporary approvals. So I wanted to at least bring you to that. Certainly, the EPC continues to function as the Flood and Erosion Control Board. We'll see if what comes out of a selectmen's meeting, which I was just mentioning to Eric, will be Monday night, September 20th. It's the public forum held virtually for members to speak about the flooding, voice their concerns, issues. I've been asked with Ed Gentile and Craig Flaherty to speak at the end of that meeting to explain to folks what has been done through planning efforts, through the Planning and Zoning Commission, what the local land use boards look at in terms of drainage on applications. As you're aware of new structures and houses, we have for at least the past 12 years required drainage systems to be installed, which is much more than was required 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago. So the newer construction does require drainage be examined, reviewed by 1 or 2 engineers. But in a storm like that, whatever drainage people have on their property is not going to be enough to handle 8 inches of rain in 4 hours. Just too much to handle. So we have been working a lot since the last EPC meeting on trying to figure out where the problems are, where they were, whether they're in areas that were in the flood zone. As I explained to Eric, there are many people who were in the flood zone that got flooded. That was not really a surprise. There were people who were not in the flood zone who did flood, and that is a surprise, and we have to figure out what may have caused that flooding, whether it was the sheer volume of water or were there other mitigating circumstances that may have caused it. So we've been, I wanted to at least alert you to that. That's why I put it on the agenda. It's important to know. It'll be important to hear what people have to say on Monday. We've been trying to keep track of properties that have flooded. And at this point, we're still in wait and see mode to see what solutions may be possible. But we usually don't plan for 200 or 500 year storms when we do our planning of designs and infrastructure. That would be way beyond what we would plan for. So I wanted to at least toss that out to you while we have you all here tonight, because I think you're going to hear a lot more about it, whether in your role as Flood and Erosion Control Board or at the Selectmen's meeting on Monday, what people's thoughts are on what could be done in the future to help minimize impacts to property owners. So I'll leave it at that.
Jeremy, I've gotten a bunch of discussion on that in my neighborhood. All new houses, all 9-foot basements, all regulated and constructed the way they were supposed to. Water, and this is not just in this last storm, it was the one before too, and I'm not sure how we're rating that one. So they both got hit and water just couldn't be absorbed by their systems, and the sump pumps were pushing into the storm drains, with the storm drains already too full, so they backed up that way. And of course then the sewer lines got nailed badly, so that's a whole nother issue that the sewer commission, I was listening to them the other night, it's got a real problem there too. So I guess what I bring up is, and you'll probably hear it, and that is 50-year flood enough to start? How is that? That seems to be our standard for designing, and maybe that's not enough. And especially homes that are really in tight, like ours is a third acre here, and the big houses are just pushing the water when it can't handle it on everybody else's property, and it went all the way around. It was all in the new houses too, which was interesting because they dug the deep basements to start with, and that's part of the issue. But I don't know. I'd be interested to see how we're going to handle that for our regulation in the future.
Right. I will mention that, Bill. That's one of the things I spoke to Craig about and Ed Gentile, because certainly you get into the question is, have all the assumptions we've been making for the last 75 years underestimating it? Of course, we may see another storm like this. We may not see another storm like this. But I guess one of the issues becomes, is if all your infrastructure is designed for a 50-year storm, could you make owners over-design their drainage systems to meet even the 100-year storm? Now, even in that case, the 100-year storm would have been overrun. So I think that's something I'll ask Craig and Ed to talk a little bit about or think about, but we have discussed that briefly, is 50-year storm the right storm to design to for these drainage systems?
Right,
that's a
thanks.
really good question.
Okay.
Hey, this is Mike. Jeremy, just a quick question. So is the net more Coltex in the ground?
You know, Mike, I think that's, is that enough? Because think about it, a lot of these properties, it's just properties that are being redeveloped are putting more Coltex in. But you still have the 6,000 people that haven't developed their property in the last 10 years, right? Of the 7,000 properties, we've only dealt with, say, even if it's 17%, that you got 6,000 people that either have little to no drainage, and then you get the town system. So certainly it's putting less water, overland flow from let's take any random EPC member's house. If you have drainage on your property, how many more Coltex can you even fit on your property? And even then, they would have been overrun in a 200-year storm. So the water overflows onto either the road, your neighbor's property. Eventually, it all flows downhill. What we have to look at is, certainly damage varied watershed to watershed. There was more damage in, say, the Stony Brook and Goodwives watersheds than there was in, say, the 5 Mile River or Chilkoot Brook watersheds. It's a good question, Mike. I don't think there's one all-encompassing answer if it's just more Coltex in the ground.
Yeah, another thing that just popped off out of my head is, hey, I want to add more second story addition to my home. And our standing, now this will be an oversimplified example, our standing planning and zoning position has been, if you're not increasing the footprint of the building, ergo, you don't have to install stormwater systems. Maybe that's a consideration we have because a lot of folks do develop and just go up, and that would be an opportunity to put, I don't know whether they'd have to do a 50-year storm design or a 100-year storm design, but maybe a little of something as opposed to absolutely nothing, right? Oh, and I certainly understand once the buckets start to overflow, the watershed does what it wants to do.
Yeah, I think one thing that, I'm only familiar with Darienne's regulations. I will say we have, as far as I know, some of the strictest, if not the strictest, drainage requirements in the entire state of Connecticut.
Wow.
And I'll certainly run that by other builders, but that's my belief is we are very stringent. We are a town that's on the water. We're low lying compared to, say, New Canaan. We are south of New Canaan. We don't give any water to New Canaan. They give water to us. So part of the problem is we're not an uphill community. So it's a variety of factors. I don't think there's one all-encompassing solution, but I think we're going to be listening to folks in terms of ideas and concepts. Nothing's going to get solved overnight with something like this. So certainly if you continue to have thoughts or ideas, we welcome emails or whatever you might have in terms of whether it's solving it globally on a townwide basis or even piece by piece. I think any good ideas will be considered.
From my perspective, I look at it and I go, okay, as insurance, that says, someone reminded me that we were looking at it the last time a tornado hit around here, et cetera, et cetera. And so the question is, when a tornado hits, it's a probability of an event. And so the question is, do we want to say, hey, we have to prepare for a tornado to come down here because there's X amount of probability that it will come here. Well, that would require us to redesign every house, everything, big cement block, etc. So clearly, I don't think we're going to go there to have that. So you go, okay, well, if you don't do it for that, we must be willing to run, okay, or everybody is willing to run a certain amount of risk, okay, that says I'm willing to take that risk. And so I come down and I go, okay, well, if it's not the 50-year storm, okay, is it a 100-year storm? And then you have all sorts of monetary considerations for that. That says, okay, if I go and I start preparing the storm drains around town for a 100-year storm, which wouldn't have been sufficient. So now you go 200-year storm. And even that wouldn't have been sufficient in the 3-hour period that happened. Okay, so if I would say, okay, what are the implications of that? Am I prepared to rip up every street that has storm drains? Dig as deep as I need to go, cross people's properties, etc., driveways, and are we prepared as a town to support that? And I don't have the I clearly have my opinion, but I don't have the answer for the town. But it's one of those things that's the implication of when when we can change, by, as Jeremy said, we can say, okay, now you have to prepare for a 100-year storm. Well, it still wouldn't have been good enough, and the houses still would have been, still would have been flooded. Houses that were never flooded. I have a friend who lived in a house for 60 years, and it's the first time he ever had water in the basement. Okay, and you go, okay, well, this was a most unusual event. So, at one point is enough. And so, I don't have the answer, but it'll be interesting to see what comes out of this meeting here to say. And so, one of the things that I know they did after Sandy was DPW would go around and clean all the storm drains.
And they still do.
And so I thought that I recognize that was helpful. Okay. One of the things we have to consider, for example, downtown was, and I think Reese talked to you about this, was they had silt. There were things that restricted the access downtown of the storm drains. And so would it make sense if we know a big storm is coming to give the okay? Because I think that's a state building requirement that we.
Well, I think one of the things we talked about a little bit here in house is when a big storm is coming, is I'll call it battening down the hatches. You tell people, look, at least at my house, we brought in, the first storm was more likely to have the high winds, Henry. So you bring in everything, all the chairs and everything that could fly away. You bring them into your house, put them in your garage so they don't fly away. Well, I think what may have been underestimated as part of this second storm, Ida, is the volume of water can really pick up things that normally you would say would never blow away or could blow away. So what happens is items that you think might not get swept away in the water get swept away. They clog culverts and obstruct waterways. So can we do a better job with that? Is saying anything you think might obstruct a waterway, try to pull them away from whatever, because the more those waters can flow unobstructed, the better off we are.
Yeah, I think one of the things, Jeremy, we should think about is, and I'm sure there are other towns have done this, so we're not starting from scratch, is to have we have a list of properties. We know where the wetlands are. We know where the inland waterways are. To sit there and say, hey, send a letter to them saying it's okay to clean up and maintain the inland wetlands or water courses. Meaning, if a tree falls down in the middle of it, take care of it. Get rid of it, because that eventually will flow down. And I was walking. I walked a lot of the Goodwives River, and there was a black piece of, well, actually two black plastics. The hard, 3 millimeter kind of a garbage bag that were there. And that was at least 20 by 30 feet. I was like, you got to get that out of there, because that's that's going to flood downstream, and it's going to run into a bridge, and that's going to be a total dam. And so it's like, you can go in and do that, because somehow I feel that there's a hesitancy to do that. I know we can't order people to do it, Jeremy, because that's sort of but we can let them know what they can do.
Right.
And then those neighbors that those neighbors of ours that choose not to, we can hopefully encourage. I don't know how we encourage them, but we can just say, well, this is going to create an obstacle for the next guy.
I think there's a way to phrase it, is even if it doesn't seem like a big deal to you, it could be a big deal to your downhill neighbor.
Yeah. Yep.
And that's what people have to understand is, water still seems to be flowing, but what we have to do is, in storms, is allow that water to flow and not back up for whatever reason.
Yep.
So certainly, if you have ideas, feel free to email me, and I'm sure this discussion is going to continue for
a long time.
A long time. Is what steps could the town take to minimize impacts?
Yeah.
A lot of people did get a lot of damage. I've met with many of them, and it's let's just say it's not this much water in your basement, it's this much water in your first floor, and that is
Yeah.
very sad.
That's amazing. That's
For the
amazing.
record, I just want to make note that I was not advocating for mandating or proposing additional, more stringent stormwater requirements.
Understood, Michael. No, this is just a general conversation between,
Right.
between EPC members here to
Right.
sort of start talking through this, okay?
Yeah, I think that's what we're going to be doing. Is we've already started informally tossing around ideas and brainstorming what is possible. And I think Eric's point is a good one. Is what is cost effective too. I think there gets to be a point where you have to weigh the costs to the community, the benefits to the community, both and the fiscal costs.
Yeah.
Is everyone willing to pitch in $30,000 to reduce the likelihood? And most people would say, I am not willing to pay $30,000.
Yeah.
So again, we have to find what's the best solution. What can we get? Again, reducing impacts in the future, finding ways to minimize impacts to people's homes is
Yeah.
really what we're talking about here.
It just goes to show you guys, hey, one of the things, as much as we know, okay, the Board of Ed has lost how many trucks?
It's unfortunate that there was flooding in the streets and there were flooding of certain properties, and that water came in so quick. And at the hour it came in, it definitely had an impact, because at that hour and that volume, and we've all saw stuff on the news,
Sure.
People's apartments in New York, that water was, looked like rivers.
Yeah.
It was, the word I heard everyone use was insane. It was really
That's nuts. That's it. All right. Anything else, Jeremy?
nothing
Yeah,
else.
Eric, could I make or ask Jeremy something Jeremy pointed out earlier that I took note of and I find interesting within this discussion tonight is only 17%, a smallish number of the, I think you said 7,000 total homes
Yeah,
in there,
whatever random number it's.
but only some smallish percentage of those have been built, added to, and renovated in line with today's regulations and installing the various engineered stormwater management system. And I know when we renovated our home 25 years ago, those regulations were not in place. So I'm an example of someone in the 83%. And what it reminds me of, or it ties back to the picture I sent, I think everybody, am I right, Jeremy, that in the picture of the 19 Meadowbrook conditions resulting from the storm, there was that green pipe, probably PVC, I guess, that looked to me to be probably drainage off of, meters and gutters coming from a home towards that Tokenique Brook. Does that make sense, or could that have been something else?
It's a good question, Jim. I sent the photo to Doug DeVesta, thinking he might know what it is. I was not able to figure out what it is.
Okay.
I will mention this, which I didn't mention before. If you think of the history of Darien, Darien's been around 201 years. Wetlands regulations only came in the 1970s. So Darien went, 150 years with no wetland regulations. Flood regulations only came around in the early 1980s. So before that, you could build whatever you want in the flood zone. No reviews, no permits. So it's only the small part of our history.
There's a number.
Regulated these.
The Good Wife Shopping Plaza is a great example.
Yeah.
That was. I mean, you have the big curve around it because you have I-95,
right.
Okay, right behind it, and so that trapped it. There's a number of properties I could go through that were swamps or made worse by I-95. I-95. None of these regulations apply to I-95. So whatever water they get, they just put right out, okay, into whatever stream is
Right.
around.
You could
Right, right.
just go ahead, fill the wetlands. What's the problem?
And that was, I mean, if you want to go back and you say Norotan Bay,
Yep.
okay, you get the aerials of Norotan Bay. Jeremy's
Couldn't
smiling.
look at it.
It wouldn't have been possible to build, you know, and so you go there and you go, hey, I'm sure a lot of that is true with, you know, a lot of the shore areas that we currently have houses on, et cetera. So you know, that's just, you know, that's just the way it is. Okay,
Right.
so we have to recognize our past. I know when we're on the street I grew up, but the guy had a pond and didn't like it, so he did away with it. Okay, and at that time it was perfectly legal. Okay, now we'd be throwing the book at him. Okay, but and but anyway, that's just.
I guess we live up in the direction of where Good Wives Shopping Center is, so we use Stop and Shop all the time. They got crushed. They were still closed, I think, a couple of days ago. I was not down there today, so I don't know if they've reopened.
They opened Friday, Jim.
Okay.
They opened Friday. I was actually there on Saturday, but no, all the stores. I mean, Jeremy was saying every store got affected.
Yeah.
And if you look, and if you go down to what's the laundromat down there?
Butler's Laundry got affected greatly. They had water.
Next to the seafood place.
Had Fisherman's Net got flooding in their first floor.
Their actual store window got broken by the water.
Oh.
And if you haven't driven down Tokenique Road, where it goes underneath the bridge, underneath the railroad bridge.
Saw it last night for the first time.
Tokenique Road's, you know, it's kind of broken up there.
Saw
So
it
the state's gonna have to do something there to repair. Yeah. Well,
Sorry to prolong this conversation, Jeremy, quick question. I was at Good Wives today, just before the call, and I noticed all of the silt at the old Bank of America building at the entrance to Good Wives. Did the property owner report the damage or any, what happened? I'm curious, what happened to that building?
I don't know. It's a good question, Mike. That building is 7 Sedgwick, former Bank of America.
Oh, yeah.
It's vacant with the drive-through. You know, that building's been on the market for quite a while. We've had a number of potential buyers come speak with me over the past 2-3 years.
Mhm.
And one of the things we realized is that property's in the flood zone. And so certainly if you have a property in the flood zone, it's restricted in terms of what you can do, what type of improvements. And certainly, sure enough, with that volume of water, I don't know if they got water in the first floor. I don't want to make a statement I'm not sure of. But certainly you can see on the ground, Mike, and that's a good observation, that entire parking lot was covered with water. I don't know. I know the building official and I have looked at a couple buildings that got water. I don't know if he's been in that one.
no.
Yeah, so anecdotally, I was impressed, understanding how Good Wives work within the parameters of the water course. Yeah, it just seemed like that building and the Fisherman's Net building, those two buildings were maybe even lower than Good Wives.
Yep.
Yeah, okay, thank you, sorry.
No problem.
Oh, anyway, I guess we should move on to the minutes.
It's September 1st.
September 1st minutes. Did everybody have a chance to review them?
Yes, sir.
Jim, did you submit comments? And
Yeah, I got comments on page 1,
all right, just
2,
typos or
3.
something?
Yep.
Okay. By the way, what happened to EPC 35/2021, James and Margaret Hadley? There was no draft.
I couldn't write it out that quick. So Hadley, and there was one other one that I couldn't quite get. Maybe Hadley and
I think it's the only one.
maybe Hadley was the only one that fell by the wayside.
Okay, just couldn't get to it. Okay, great. Okay, no, I was just curious if there was some other issue that could come up or something.
That'll be on for October 6th.
Okay.
Was that the, with Hadley, was that the one that was, had the water course behind it?
No, Hadley had that was the pool with the 2 wetlands, one on the left side, one on the
Oh,
right.
yeah.
On Harbor Lane.
I'm curious what happened on that one that we brought before us that I guess has to go before a public hearing. What happened on that last storm, because that was a real tight water course behind that. It's on, I can't remember the name of it, Hampton?
Half mile.
Yeah, no, it wasn't Half Mile. It was, yeah, I'm sorry. I wanted to bring this up because I'm just curious if anybody went up there and saw if that place got flooded, because it was
I didn't see
right on the corner of Stony Brook Stream hitting it. But anyway, all right, moving forward.
it. Okay. Minor comments from Jim.
Okay. Anybody else have anything so we can say, Jim, would you kindly propose a motion to approve the minutes of September 1st?
Yes, sir. I'm pleased to make a motion to approve the minutes of the Environmental Protection Commission meeting of September 1, 2021.
Bill, may I have a second?
I second that.
Great. And then without objection, so moved.
Great.
Okay. That's it. Hey, just for your own information, it's my understanding that 3 people are being interviewed by the selectmen before October meeting, so that in the October meeting, we should have 3 more members, which will make us up to our full complement of 7.
Oh, very good.
Right. So it won't be as much pressure, if our quorum's 4 and we're only 4. So this will lighten things up a bit for us. So FYI. All right. And then, Jim, can I have a motion to adjourn?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn this special meeting of Tuesday, September 14th, 2021 of the Environmental Protection Commission. Thank you all.
Bill, may I have a second?
I second it.
So then without objection, so moved. Thank you, everybody, for making this special meeting to get those approvals out so those guys can get to work
Absolutely.
recovering.
Thank you.
Yeah, to the